You are listening to the Slow Living Podcast, and I'm your host, Stephanie O'Day. What if I told you that you could truly have the life of your dreams, the life you've always wanted, one filled with abundance, joy, and a sense of purpose? It's absolutely possible, and I see it each and every day with my coaching clients. It all starts with learning how to slow down. You deserve to live the life you've always dreamt about. Let's get started. So if you're a fan of the podcast, you're going to absolutely love the book. Slow Living, Cultivating a Life of Purpose in a Hustle-Driven World is now available wherever books are sold. Buy it for yourself, your children, your friends, and your neighbors. You can get all the juicy details at stephanieoday.com/slow living book. Trust me, this is hands down the best $20 you'll ever spend. Hello, Slow Down Society. Steph here, and welcome back to another edition of the Slow Living Podcast. I am thrilled you are here. We've hit some milestones in the last few weeks, and so I just want to acknowledge that. First off, this is the 150th episode of the podcast, which means I have been talking into a Zoom recording and a microphone, sort of staring at myself in Zoom for 150 weeks in a row. And that's a little weird. It has this odd feeling to hit record in a house where everyone else is still sound asleep. And I am sitting here with one of those kind of like daylight light things that I got on Amazon to have a little bit of vitamin D, I guess, or some sort of light therapy. I actually don't know what the science is, but it makes me happy. And so I turn it on. And so that's the glow in this dark house with a separate little laptop computer set up to a microphone on a boom arm, and then I am using the Apple headphones. So that is my setup, and it was very inexpensive. And the recording software is literally just Zoom. And so that is how my setup is. And I've been doing this for 150 weeks in a row, and we just now have hit the 100,000 download mark of the podcast, which people have told me means that hopefully other things get unlocked in the algorithm with Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And so if you are new here, thank you. Please know that although there are 150 episodes, you are not behind. You can scroll through the listing in your podcast app, and any of the subject matters or titles that sound interesting to you, hop in. Don't feel like you have to listen in order. I try usually when I do a solo episode to talk about past episodes that might be interesting or helpful or useful to you. And I will do that for this episode also. But first off, please know that I think you're amazing and wonderful. And the idea that technology is the way it is, that I can use a rinky-dink laptop set up with an external mic and Apple headphones and record in Zoom, and somehow people from all over the world can listen to this if they choose, is really neat. And I like talking about slow living, and I like talking about unplugging, and I like talking about going within and spending time in nature and really figuring out what it is you want out of life. And because of that, you would think, and I actually have two opposing thoughts, that embracing technology wouldn't be something that I'm all for. And that is true. I am not an early adopter in any way of new things. I like to kind of sit back and watch other people goof around with it and see how they fare before I choose on purpose to try something. Yet technology is how I get to talk to you. and how I get to communicate with you. Most of my communication throughout the day is through email, which is electronic mail, which wouldn't be possible without technology. So I think one big thing about slow living and using that slow living acronym of simply look only within, don't have a knee jerk reaction that something has to be all or nothing and that you have to like unplug and live off the grid and can your own tomatoes and all of these things in order to live a slow life. You can if that's what you want, but you don't have to. I happen to live in Silicon Valley, and while I am living a slow life, many people around me, most of the people I would venture to guess, are not living a slow life. And so I think that's what makes me want to write and coach and teach and speak about it so much is I know there's a way for you to be calm, for you to be at peace, for you to feel like you are living your best version of your own life, even if you're surrounded by others who are kind of succumbing to this frenzied and frantic lifestyle and kind of embracing hustle culture. And if that's not you, great, because you are most deaf not alone, because we have now hit 100,000 downloads. So at least 100,000 people are out there and have that same thought process that you do. So welcome. Give yourself a big hug. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for ordering the new book. So, Slow Living, Cultivating a Life of Purpose in a Hustle Driven World is available for pre order everywhere. Please order it. That is crazy helpful for me and for the publishers to know one, how many copies they need to print, and two, it really helps kind of let the algorithm know that this book is useful and hopefully helpful to many and that you're interested in it. And so then Amazon and the different book um, outlets and everything is linked on stephanieodea.com/slow living book, an independent bookstore, all of those different um, avenues are linked within there. Also, if you have an independent bookstore in your neighborhood, ask for them to carry the book. Ask for your local library to carry the book. It's just really helpful for me as an author to be able to continue to write when books are sold. And it's under $20. It's a great holiday gift. It's a great graduation gift. It's a great gift for all ages and stages of life. And that is actually what we're going to talk about today. Today, we have titled this episode Quarter Life and Midlife Crisis. And probably the exact word is crises, but it's difficult to spell. And so we're not going to use that word. And that's also not what people would search for if they were searching for midlife or quarter life crisis. Today, we're going to talk about how that happens, why it occurs, and what you can do about it. And it's important. Most of the people who work with me and email me and who enroll in Simple Shortcuts to Peace, they do so because they don't currently like the life of which they're living, or they feel as if it could be better in some way. And they're worried that the trajectory that they're on won't get them to where they want to go. And so that's why your body kind of freaks out in these kind of milestone ages and stages of life. So either quarter life, that's usually in your early 20s, or midlife, which for a lot of us happens right around the 40s. It could happen as early as 35. It could happen at 50, 55. But for most of us, it kind of happens in either the 20s or the 40s. So quarter life, it's this period of uncertainty and stress and questioning that's often experienced by young adults while they transition from adolescence to adulthood. It's marked by the pressure to make significant life decisions related to career, relationships, and personal identity. And For a lot of us, depending on where we fall in these age ranges, we could actually be having our own midlife crisis or still contemplating our own life decisions as our children enter this kind of quarter life crisis age and stage in life. And the last few episodes, Amy Lee and I talked about raising successful teens and tweens. And then she also shared her slow living story. And she reiterated, as I have often throughout this podcast in my writing, that your kids are watching you. You are your child's best role model. So if you are in your 40s freaking out and they are entering their 20s and are watching you freaking out, that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel calm that the adults in the room don't feel like they've got their act together. So I don't want you to pretend. I've also recorded different podcast episodes on how fake it until you make it is not great advice. I don't want you to act fake and phony. I want you to own any sort of uncertainty that you have. But then I also want you to try and model that you're all okay. Um, I've heard different metaphors used when children are watching grown-ups. And one of the best metaphors is that you're the flight attendant. And as we all know, if you've flown before, if there's turbulence, the first thing passengers do is sort of scan around and look and see, are the other passengers freaking out? Is this normal turbulence? And then if they're really feeling uncomfortable, they try and find a flight attendant. And if the flight attendant is still walking around, still doing his or her job, and doesn't feel panicked or worried in any way, it's insanely soothing for the passengers on the plane because they know they're not in danger. So, in general, your kids are watching you move about your life. And if you feel like you're having a hard time and you're feeling frantic and don't like the way the trajectory of your life is, seek help, look for counsel, look for others who can help calm you. Seek out counseling, seek out therapy, seek out your religious practitioner or holistic practitioner or somebody somewhere to help you because your kids want to make sure that they will be okay. So pay attention to that. For the quarter life crisis, a lot of times, and this happens to me on coaching calls, is someone will get on the phone with me and we start talking about their life plan. And they start to feel really uncomfortable. One, because there's not a kind of magic 8 ball for the future or a crystal ball to show them that it's all going to be okay. And that's tricky for humans because humans want to feel as if they're in control of all things that are happening in their life. And that's not true. All you can do is hopefully continuously make really good decisions and focus on what the next best step to take is. When I'm on the phone with someone in their 20s or I'm writing back and forth through email, and then even with my own children who are in that age and stage of life and their kids, they feel uncomfortable if they are on a path that they haven't chosen for themselves. So let's think about that. So when you're in school, especially grade school and high school, you're told what classes to take and what you need to get in those classes, and with the idea that you're going to get into a college and then you're going to major in a certain major and then you're going to kind of live out your life, quote unquote, happily ever after. I like to zoom out a little bit more when I'm working with younger people and look at it globally. And the first question that I ask someone who's young is where they want to live as a grown-up. and what kind of lifestyle they want to have. Um, because depending on that, that's how you kind of reverse engineer. Okay, great. So you want to live in this sort of house. You want to have this sort of lifestyle. What does that cost? And then do the mathing and figure it out. Okay, so in order for me to have this kind of lifestyle and live in this sort of house, I need to make probably $250,000 a year. If that number seems astronomical and not something that you as a parent feel comfortable with and can guide your kids through, maybe find someone who can. If that money or something that your kids want seems so outside of the realm of possibilities that you don't know how to support even that daydream, find someone who can. Because what I don't want is for you to squash the idea of the lifestyle of a 13, 14, 15, 16-year old, because it's not something that you personally can identify with. Look around. There's money out there in this world. There are a whole bunch of people making a whole bunch of money. And yes, money does not buy happiness. But if your child at a young age wants a particular lifestyle, don't squash them. Agree. Okay. Wow. I agree with you. That would be amazing. Amazing. And I know you can do this. I believe in you and I have faith in you. So let's reverse engineer this a little bit more. In order to make that kind of money, let's do some Googling. Let's do some research. What kind of jobs, what kind of professions have that as their salary? Then figure out that. Okay, now you've got this list. Do any of these professions and careers like feel like a possibility for you and something you can do? And this is where we've got the caveat. I don't want you to pick a pie in the sky career or have your adolescent have a pie in the sky career such as NBA player or the next Britney Spears or Ariana Grande or Taylor Swift. If your child isn't already on that trajectory of being a phenom in those areas, those will be fun and those will be hobbies. We do need actual professions and careers that they can study for and go to school for. Um, okay, so that was my caveat. Okay, but let's say maybe that they have realized that being an anesthesiologist would be a great profession and would provide the type of lifestyle that they want to have. Okay, so where does an anesthesiologist go to college? Where do they go to med school? What kind of classes do they need to take in the university? What kind of grades would they need to get in high school in order to reach those markers and that type of thing? Maybe you're talking to a guidance counselor right away if they're in their high school years. So you get to decide. Also, depending on the age and the stage of your child, if they are realizing at age 21, 22, 23, they went to college and they got a degree in liberal arts because they didn't have that sort of foresight at 13, 14, 15 years old to be on a career path that felt good to them in their brain and their body. Okay, figuring that out when you're 22, 23, 24, that the degree you have might not set you up for the kind of lifestyle that you want to have, the kind of life that you want to have is much better than figuring that out at 45, 46, 47 years old. So maybe it's taking a pause and looking around and finding examples of people who have been there, done that with that particular degree or that particular skill set, And then maybe you do need to go back to school. Maybe you need a master's in business. Maybe you need this. Maybe you need that. And kind of again, reverse engineering it. I say often that if we're lucky, life is long. And also, if you're listening to my words, you're not dead yet. Um, find a way to course correct. Will it be more difficult in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s? Yes. But find examples of people who have been there, done that, and then reverse engineer their decision making process and model it and do it. Um, and this feeling in um, the midlife crisis time, it usually kind of happens. Maybe a tragedy occurred in your life, or maybe a friend right around your age got diagnosed with something that's uh, life altering, and it made you sort of reassess. So the definition of midlife, kind of crisis, it's usually a period of self-reflection and existential questioning that often happens in middle age. Individuals might feel a sense of urgency to make changes in their lives, and that can include career shift, relationship changes, or drastic lifestyle adjustments. Most of the people that I work with are women. And by I say most of, I'm saying like 99.6%. Every once in a while, I do get a gentleman on the phone or someone emails me, but in general, they're mostly women. Midlife crises in females happens right around when perimenopause sets in. And so this feeling of uncertainty and kind of existential questioning happens while your body is going through reverse puberty, while your estrogen and progesterone are shifting and changing. And that is why so much turmoil happens, especially with women during those years. And there's no one size fits all, like blanket. This is what will fix you. This supplement will fix you. Hormone replacement therapy will fix you. Chopping all your hair off, getting a tattoo. None of these things will fix a midlife crisis. Will they help? Yes. Is it something to pay attention to? Yes. If you are physically unwell, and you're not sleeping well and your hormones aren't working, talk to your doctor. Absolutely fix those physical things as much as you can. I've recorded podcast episodes. Don't know the number right off the top of my head, but they were earlier, and it was like getting your sleep in alignment, fixing your hormones. I think I had titled that "It's Not You, It's Your Hormones." It also talked about intermittent fasting. That is another really good way to kind of pay attention to your body and its cues. Okay, so if this is you and you're in your 40s ish era, and you think you are having a midlife crisis and nothing seems to be going correctly for you, and you kind of want to burn the whole house down, first off, you are most def not alone. This happens a lot, and I would venture to say it happens more often than not. Anyone who says that they've always had their life completely and totally in a perfect way is probably lying to you and trying to get you to buy something. So pay attention. My favorite advice is to kind of do a Control Alt Delete and do a factory reset and start daydreaming again. If you have the possibility to go on a retreat in nature, or check yourself into a hotel for a few days with your journal and really see if the trajectory you're on will get you from where you are to where you want to go. And if that's not the case for you, then resetting that trajectory and really taking a long, hard look at your life. Um, Sometimes with my coaching clients, I ask them to write an obituary and what do they want to be remembered for? And sometimes when you're feeling frantic, you think the only thing that's going to make you feel better is to throw away everything in the attic or the garage or organize the linen closet. And sort of, sometimes that feels good, but that's probably not what you want to be known for. So if you do write your obituary, what do you want to be known for? Um, and if you're not currently doing the things in your life that you do want them to write about in your obituary, start paying attention to that and start putting some of those things into your life now. The new book is written in components, and the mindset plus action plus consistency equals success formula is in the book. And that's how these sections are broken up. Also, within the sections, we use the 5 steps to slow living, which is to declutter all of the things that aren't working for you. 2, know where you're headed, program that metaphorical GPS. 3, stay present and positive in the here and the now. 4, teeny tiny baby action steps every day. Wherever it is you want to go, the only way to get there is to take daily action. And then 5 is tweaking and fine tuning as needed. So we use those 5 steps and then we apply it to the components of the peace pyramid. So your time management, your health, your finances, your household organization, and your relationship. And then when all of those components are in place, that's when that teeny tiny triangle that's called peace gets put on top of your pyramid. What happens though in the quarter life crisis stage, and then again in the midlife crisis stage, is instead of going within, people start poking and finding reasons for why they're miserable. So if you're in the quarter life crisis, maybe you're blaming your teachers. Maybe you're blaming your parents. Maybe you're blaming society. Maybe you're blaming global warming. You're blaming everyone. And you could be correct. You could have had a really bad childhood. You could have been a victim of a whole bunch of horrible, horrible traumatic experiences. And I hate that for you. And I don't like it in any way. And that's part of your story. And that's part of who you are. And it's not fair and it's not right. But if you're not able to make forward progress because you are still focusing on that, I want you to talk to someone. I want you to reach out to your doctor, find some therapy, and work on that, because staying stuck because you're blaming markers of things that are outside of you won't move you forward. It'll keep you stuck. Same thing with midlife crisis. If you are in a marriage that you don't like, if you are still having a hard time with and haven't reconciled how you were raised and you haven't healed that kind of inner child inside, and the you are thinking the reason you're unhappy and the reason you aren't where you want to be is because you're locked in some bad relationships, or because your house is a mess, or because your boss is a jerk, or because this house is falling apart and you hate it and this isn't the life you ever imagined for yourself. Okay, so that's great. You've got some information and now work with that. Again, if you have the ability to do so, unplug for a few days, go hiking, go sit in nature with your journal and just start daydreaming and map out what it is you want. What is that step 2 GPS pointed to? We talked about your obituary, but also I want you to daydream a little bit. If you're in your 40s, okay, well, what do you look like in your 70s and 80s? What does your health look like? How do you wear your hair? What clothes are you wearing? Who's surrounded by you? What are your hobbies? Um, when we talk about hobbies, I like people to pick two, one for their brain and one for their body. And so for me, for instance, I like running and I like yoga. So that's for my body. And actually, yoga is also for my brain. And then hobby wise, I like to write, I like to journal, and I like to do puzzles, and I like to read. So those are things for my brain. Um, what will your hobbies be in your 70s and your 80s? And if that's not what you're doing now, if in your 70s you know you're going to be an avid golfer and you haven't picked up a golf club in the last 30 years, or actually I'm aging myself here, last 15 years, find a way to make it happen. Go to the driving range, start doing things for yourself now that will set future you up for success. Um, Before I log off, I've now recorded, as I said earlier, 150 episodes. Many of those episodes are interviews with people sharing their own slow living story and their own way that they overcame some sort of triumph in order to live the life of their dreams now. Listen to them, get some inspiration. No one's story is going to be completely and totally the same. And that's what makes life fun and gives it some sparkle and some glitter. So, episode 34 is an interview with my friend Sandy Cooper. Puppy Heart Love, Sandy Cooper. She unfortunately in her 20s lost a child. And that is a huge, huge monkey wrench that was thrown in her life trajectory. And she still talks about it now. She hasn't forgotten that this happened and she still mourns. But she also knows that in order to be a good wife and mother and person and human, she has to move on and she has to do other things. That doesn't mean she forgets, but she still is moving forward in her life. So that was episode 34. We entitled that Mom, You're Amazing. She wrote that book, Mom, You're Amazing, and you should absolutely read that book. This past episode, episode 149, Amy Lee, When Tragedy Strikes. Amy Lee, her whole life changed in an instant. And she talks about the before and the after. And this is a huge life event that occurred in her midlife years. And it has shifted how she thinks and acts about all of the things now that happen in her life. Episode 104. So 104 isn't an interview, but it's me helping you to daydream and map out your 3-year plan. And the reason I choose 3 years is because many people think that they can completely and totally up level and change their life in 1 year. They do it as a New Year's resolution. And then they find come March, come June, come some month, it's not going fast enough. And so they sort of give up. And then a lot of people also do 5-year plans. And in the corporate world, they talk about your 5-year plan pretty often. You can have that. But I have found from working with a whole bunch of people that 5 years seems far enough away that action doesn't happen on a daily basis. And so that's why I've picked the 3-year plan. So I walk you through it. The very next episode, episode 105, one of my long-term coaching clients comes back to share her 3-year plan. And so I pull her worksheets out of where she was 3 years ago, and then we compare and contrast it to where she is now. And Beth's story is phenomenal. So if you need a kind of boost of inspiration, Beth will give that to you in episode 105. Episode 102, my friend Angela is on sharing her story. And in her 20s, when most of us are kind of figuring out our quarter life plan and trajectory. She was engaged and she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and she's now in her 40s. And so she's sharing how that diagnosis at such a young age shaped her life, but also she still did all of the things that 20-year-old Angela wanted. She just needed to do them in a different way. And her story is absolutely inspirational and phenomenal. And then episode 106 isn't an interview again. That's me talking to you. But we're talking about the differentiation between manifestation and magical thinking. So, manifestation is kind of this woo term in the spiritual world. It's the idea that God has delivered the life of your dreams. And sometimes in kind of the spiritual or woo way, it's the idea that you make plans and then the universe meets you halfway. And so people talk about how I manifested this car. Well, sort of. Probably you made a whole bunch of correct life decisions, which created enough money in order for you to purchase the car. So depending on your thoughts and your beliefs, I walk you through manifestation versus magical thinking. And again, it's the idea of a high schooler thinking that they're going to play professional sports, but they haven't actually been in training. That is magical thinking. That's not real life. That's, well, it'll all be okay if I win the lottery. Well, we all know that winning the lottery isn't a plan. That's a pipe dream. So paying attention between how to daydream, but make your daydreams work for you. So I walk you through that in episode 106. Okay. As always, if you have questions, email me. I'm at steph@stephanieoday.com. You can DM me on Instagram, direct message me on Facebook. I do have a social media manager. So if you want to get a direct link or different things, Alex, my social media manager, will put that in a direct message. If you want to actually talk to me, email is the best. If you want to set up a mindset upgrade coaching call, you can do so. Plop yourself on my calendar. Those are free. That's at stephanieoday.com/mindset. All of this really is written out in the new book. I wanted this new book to not be a sales pitch for coaching or a sales pitch for anything else. The book is really a great way to reset yourself if you are in any sort of midlife crisis or quarter life crisis, or if you want to help people get off on the right foot before they're in crisis mode. So please buy the book. It's all in there, stephanieoday.com/slow living book. Okay, pretty people, consider yourself loved and hugged. I'll be back in your earbuds next week. Do you have a slow living story to share? Leave me a voicemail at stephanieoday.com/podcast with any questions, comments, feedback, or testimonials, and I will be sure to include it in an upcoming episode. Also, if you found value in this episode, please share it with your family and friends and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. The more you share, comment, and leave positive reviews, the more people we can reach and share the slow living lifestyle and messaging. Thank you, Slow Down Society, and have an absolutely wonderful day.